Hello again. Well, I'm back to the comfort of my own home. I had a very strange week beyond there and tour. Things didn't go anything according to plan, but sure, when did they ever do? But I'm very optimistic that way. I wear things very lightly, you know. I got told at the last minute that I was to be filmed in a fairy fort in some field, and I was to find where this fairy tree, or under a fairy tree or something, at the last minute. And I thought, no, geez, I'm in enough bother without trying to do that. So that went by the wayside. Of course, I was blamed for everything as usual, but sure, look, little do I care, you know. People seem these days, they seem to have to blame somebody else, you know, when things don't go right. And Christmas, you know, it was strange, very strange over there. You know, it's gone, that was the first Christmas, or after, the week after Christmas, I spent in tour since well after my mother died. 2010 was probably the last Christmas, maybe even before that, 2008 or 9, the last Christmas I was over there. And you know what's gone completely, and it shocked me. Goodwill is nearly non-existent. And it was funny because I was no sooner there and this woman come up to me and she says, oh, by the way, she says, Nicky, you do realise as soon as you land here, you're under close scrutiny. That was her kind of way of saying, watch out, there's all eyes on you. And that's the way the week went. You couldn't do right from wrong. And another young lad told me, oh Jesus, he said, it's shocking here, he said, I'd love to see you coming. He says, there's great crack in you. He said, you'd have crack with anyone. Your own age, older than you, my age group, the younger crowd. You'll sit down at the table and you'll have crack with anyone. He says, but you can't do that here. See, these ones, he said, these old ones your age, he said, they're obsessed with work, hoarding money, he says, and they never know how to enjoy it. He said, the sooner they're gone, the better. And that shocked me. I thought, Jesus, how things have changed. And nobody wished you well or anything, never heard it. But then, you see, you have to focus on the good stuff. And I met some grand people too, you know. Met two grand lads above in St. Hugh's, and, well, the well was full of water, and I could put my hand into it and fill a bottle, and it was freezing outside everywhere, you know. And, I wouldn't mind the old farmer coming along, and he was making out that some of the videos I made, he wasn't happy about it. The truth of the matter was he'd stuff on the land that wasn't legal, and he didn't want it filmed, and that's the holy all of it. So that didn't bother me at all, you know. And I got a bottle of the water, and the lad's only got one lick of it now. I hope to go back and get a couple of licks, because my knee is, honestly lad, my knee is completely cured. And I was thinking when I got home, you know, I was thinking back to the old stories and concentrating on that, because, God, I wouldn't like to live over there now. It's not a nice place. It is a nice place, but there's a lot of the people another young fella said to me, oh, he said, it's the slurry they're spreading in the field, he said, is soaking into the water, and he says, all the men are becoming like adult children, he said, and the women are bossing everyone around. So there you go, that's not my word. And when I was a boy, you know, I spent a lot of my time across the bogs, and I was fascinated with the old people then, and they were lovely people. And I remember at Christmas, that was lovely feeling. Now, Christmas was a terrible time for me. I hated it, because I was very, it just wasn't a nice time. And when you don't want to go back to your own house, that kind of says it all. But I remember going in the toll road, and especially to midnight mass, and there'd just be a lovely feeling among people. People that you'd hardly ever see from one end of the year would be wishing you a happy Christmas, and they'd mean it. You know, there was a lovely warm feeling about Christmas. I don't think we're ever going to get that back. And I used to go down, and even over the Christmas holidays when the ground would be frosted and the moon would be bright, I'd be out, and some of the things I found, look, that's a bone. These are stuff I believe my great-grandfather left in the ground for me. He must have known I was going to come along 100 years after him. That's the bone handle of a knife. And I found that in the ground below in Ringbog, where he had his hut. And you know, you could, in the summertime, you could stand in the shadows of the trees and you could look and you could see where the wildflowers still grew in a square where the hut once stood. Them flowers still grew, and it was amazing. It's amazing to be in the place of your ancestors, because you can still feel their spirit there. It's like, and all the stuff, these yokes here now, big heavy pins would have come out of his peat hut. Big old wire cut nail, a 6-inch one or an 8-inch one, I don't know. It's huge. All these I found in the ground. I used to climb up in the tree, because my cousin, a bit later on, around the mid-70s, my cousin Barry Cutie used to drive the loco, bringing moss peat from Bunny Kilbog up to the power station in Road. And Barry said to me one night, he said there was, they were going to try and run the rail track across where the hut once stood. Barry wasn't having none of it, and he said to me one weekend, he said, come down here with me, he said, and give me a hand. And didn't we put a junction by where the hut stood, so the rail tracks went alongside it, and yoked it up, and the engineer came down on the Monday morning. There's bits of the clay pipe he smoked back in the 1870s. There are bits of the stem. They're my great-grandfather's. I picked all them out of the ground. But I used to hide up in the tree and used to torment Barry. Barry be going by in this old locomotive. I'd have 14 or 15 carriages of moss peat behind him in the loco, and wouldn't I be up in the tree with the catapult? I'd be hopping stones off the cab of this train. Jesse be looking out, and he was telling everyone he was convinced it was haunted. There's his great-grandparents was throwing stones at him going by for tormenting them in the night, until one night he come along and he shone a light, a big spotlight he lifted up, and there he saw me above in the tree with the catapult, ready to let go of stone. He said, Jesus, I should have known it was you. So it caught me out that time. But the nicest thing I found was this, and I treasure that. And there's a little hole in it. Now, one of these would out the hole, and all that is worth nearly 200 pounds. It's a French franc. And I was above in the tree one of them nights. I was firing them stones at my cousin, and if you can see, there's a kind of a black shine. I see the black shine on it. It's been in the bog that long. I found this probably 1972 or 73, and I've kept it ever since. And I know my great-grandfather probably left that there for me. It was obviously probably a medallion at some stage. You can see there's a very small hole in it. And he was a clockmaker. It's a sad story, really, because he had clients all over Europe, and he used to travel to Europe, and he used to make the brass cogwheels of the grandfather clocks, and he made them out of brass sheet, and he'd draw the cogwheel and he'd cut it out and make it and put it in the clocks, and he'd done very well for himself. And he built a stone cottage there at the Silver River, just on the Offaly side, and he was only in it 12 years, and then the McCormicks came along. He'd 9 infant children, and they bullied him out of it. It took them 2 years to get him out of it. And he ended up in Ringbog, where I was hiding up in the trees there. He had to build a peat hut. And he reared his 9 children. All my granduncles and granddads were reared in that peat hut. They lived in it for 63 years. And he lived till he was 101, despite all he went through. And he died outside Tor House in 1920, running up the hill. Cattle broke out, somebody else's cattle, and he tried to get out in front of them. 101 years of age, you don't mind. And he collapsed at the ground. And imagine that's a memento I have of him. When I was up in the tree, 72 or 73, I could see a glitter coming off that down on the bank, and to get up and down that tree 2 or 3 times before I found exactly where it was in the ground, and that's what it was. 5 francs with the little hole in it, and it could only come from him, from his tours round, and a lot of the other stuff. I have old pottery there, and it has gold leaf on it. That's stuff he bought back from France and Holland and Germany, because he was all over Europe, you know. And that's the crack, and that's the story I was going to tell tonight. And I'm glad to show that, because I've had that so many years. Happy New Year to you all.